mix this up more so you'll be confused from the next round. Okay. The council passed sick leave for restaurant workers, a citywide increase in the minimum wage. But there are still unscrupulous employers in D.C. who fail to live up to benefits and wage requirements. What will you do to improve enforcement and fight wage theft?
Well, first of all, we are looking now at what the level of enforcement officials is. How many people do we have working in that area? And as we improve wages for people, the challenge will be able to ensure we have enough people who will go out and do restaurants and other places of work in the District of Columbia and ensure that people, in fact, are paying the wages that are required. Once we determine whether we have enough officials or not, I intend in this upcoming budget to be able to introduce a request of the council to be able to increase the budget of the Department of Employment Services in order to be able to add additional officials, if in fact we need additional officials, in order to do that work.
It really amazes me that now that you're running for office, that with the combined experience of 68 years of my opponents who have served in elected office, that the citizens of the District of Columbia finally got the raise on minimum wage, finally got the conversation seriously around the living wage and the tip wage. And now we're really talking about, are we going to really enforce the fact that we have been robbing from moms and dads who are just putting in a hard day's work, and all they want to do is be treated with respect and to be given what they have earned. And if we're going to be a city that works for everyone, it's the leadership that has to be provided. And as your next mayor, I will make sure that the types of individuals that are put in place, who are the executives, who are there to enforce those laws, have the resources that they need. We don't need a study, we need action. And that action comes from being the mayor and to being the one who lays out the plan and the program that says, give the people what they deserve and not be robbing from moms and dads.
Mr. Orange.
Well, I'd just like to set the record straight. In 2006, I championed the Living Wage Act, and which established the living wage of $11.75 with annual increases. And just recently, it was increased to $13.40. This is the living wage when there's at least $100,000 in the project. I championed, along with Chairman Mendelson, the Living Wage Act for the large retailers, which we passed and the mayor vetoed. And then I authored and introduced the Minimum Wage Act, which brings us to where we are today at 1150. On February 4th, I will be introducing the Wage Theft Amendment Act to make sure that we address that issue. Now, as it relates to right now, we have provided law that says that there will be self-certification by the restaurants for the first time. There's about 2,500 restaurants here, 800 that we can track. The other 1,700 we have to make sure that they self-certify that they are actually paying the minimum wage in the skill wage statistics.
I was at the forefront, we were at the forefront actually of making sure that people who work in restaurants get sick leave. This was an issue that was really important. And I remember when the city council first passed the bill, they exempted tipped workers. I thought that was really interesting how you can exempt tipped workers, who are the people that serve you your food, from having sick leave. That doesn't make any sense. We had implemented that way before they even thought about talking about it. It's been in our plans for years. For over 4 years, we've had sick leave for all, not just full-time people, but part-time people, tipped employees, and everyone. On the idea of enforcement, absolutely. We need to hire more people in order to enforce the laws. It's that simple.
For those of you that watch the city council, either because it's on TV and you want to go to sleep at night, or you just like watching it happen, one of the things you know is that very often the vote on a bill is not the first real vote. The vote on a bill is often something like the vote to table the bill. When we first passed Paid Sick and Safe Leave Act, the real vote on that act was the vote to table. That was the vote to kill the bill. Vince Gray, Jack Evans voted to table indefinitely to kill the bill. Now, the way that we go forward with wage theft, And the issue is that we have to be sure that our employers do what they're supposed to do. We need a separate Department of Labor where that's solely their job, is to enforce the laws of the District of Columbia that you vote for, that we pass, and that you bring to us to be sure that our corporations are held accountable.
The next question allow you 2 minutes to answer. I think it will be a challenge. The question is, what 2 recommendations from the Tax Review Revision Commission would you commit to including in your first budget? What 2 recommendations would you want to change and how? Start with Mr. Orange, and I'll call the names when I want to. Each one is spoken. Okay?
Well, as you know, the Tax Commission report will come before the council, I believe, on February 12th, and actually I'm meeting with Mayor Williams, who's the chair of the commission next week. There's a menu of items that actually take place with this particular proposal, so I can't give you an exact item that I will vote for, that I will be against. But I will say that whatever we do, it should be in the best interest of the citizens of the District of Columbia, that assures that people will be able to stay in the district and that we are not actually providing relief for those who really don't need relief. Like, taking the real property tax down to 5%, and that actually, addresses folks west of the park and not east of the river. I would look for something that can fund the new communities initiative, the low-income housing that this administration is backing away from, that deals with low-income housing at Berry Farms, at Anacostia, at Lincoln Heights, over in Deanwood, at Parkview, and Park Process in Parkview. And these are the things that we will be looking at. And I will be looking for something that's going to ensure that we are putting the appropriate dollars and resources in our educational system to make sure that our children get the best education they can possibly get here in the District of Columbia, and that we support and invest in our pipeline of education from preschool through the University of the District of Columbia. Right now, there is a movement to eliminate the athletic programs at the University of the District of Columbia. There are 147 student athletes up there that need those scholarships in order to get a good college education there. And they're also talking about eliminating 28 of the baccalaureate programs, and all of this for $16 million over a 5-year period. So this tax policy that comes before us, I will be looking at a tax policy that supports the citizens of the District of Columbia.
Mr. Wells, I'm not staying with the same order. I'm going to Mr. Wells.
Thank you very much. There's 4 things that I would do with this tax code. One is we need to have a progressive tax code. We're a progressive city, and it needs to be a progressive tax code. One way that we do it is that we keep the upper rate that's set to sunset. And anybody running for office should be asked, are you going to keep the upper rate at about 8.9%? We have to keep that. But the other thing that we need to do is we need to increase the standard deduction. So people can keep more of the money they make to spend on themselves and their families. And that will make it more progressive. The other thing is that the tax code, or the tax commission, is looking at increasing how much you can keep away from the inheritance tax. Now, I do believe that our current inheritance tax rate of how much is exempted is a little low, primarily because houses have gotten so valuable that there is a value to see that homes pass down to the next generation. I would increase the exemption up to $3 million, so to kind of split the difference. The other thing that I would do as we're starting to run surpluses, that I believe that our local businesses need a break. We have one of the highest commercial property tax rates in the country, and we need to provide locally owned businesses a break. So how do you do it? It's not lowering the property tax, the commercial property tax, but it's creating something like a Schedule H, where you get a tax credit for the amount of taxes that you pay, the property tax, for your triple net lease or your own property. We could set a business size of gross tax receipts of up to $2.5 million. That way, locally owned businesses that you know, they certainly generate wealth locally, but they also hire local folks will get the tax break, the tax credit, the tax credibility, so that we can grow more local businesses in DC.
Mr. Gray?
Well, first of all, I'm not prepared at this stage to say exactly which one you would accept and which one you would not accept, because I think it's going to take a review process in order to be able to do that. One of the things I think we need to look at is how we continue to finance education in the District of Columbia. We just did an adequacy study that was designed to be able to determine what additional investments we need to make in education in the city. Those things that will continue to keep an adequate pay level for our teachers in the District of Columbia, and will continue to invest in our schools so we can continue the progress that we've been making. One of the things I would support, however, is there's a high rate now. The highest rate is 8.95%, and there is nothing in the middle. I would support for those who make $42,000 a year. This is one of the things that's actually discussed in the study. I would support a lower rate for those folks in order to make it more palatable for them to be able to live in the District of Columbia. Now, in terms of a commercial tax rate, we need to recognize that we have the lowest residential tax rate in the District of Columbia by comparison to the entire region. We pay 85 cents, the cost is 85 cents per $100 of assessed value, and everybody else in the region is higher than that. I also sponsor legislation, which is in effect at this stage, to be able to lower the commercial tax rate, which is $1.85 per $100 of assessed value. It was lowered on the first $3 million down to $165, and the purpose of that was to be able to support our small businesses in the District of Columbia that we want to preserve in the city. The Tax Commission did a good job of assessing what the tax situation is in the District of Columbia. I actually did legislation that approved an increase in the standard deduction several years ago.
Ms. Lewis?
The first thing that I would do as a mayor is to make sure that there is transparency and accountability in this process. One of the things that has been very clear as I have traveled across the city and talking with residents is that everything seems to be done in a secret. And no matter whether we had a tax hearing, we should be able to say how many people showed up at that hearing. And if it was on television, how many people were really viewing that? And it's not that you can't, because at where we are in America right now, we can have access to information by just pressing send. And so if we have authorities that I, as mayor, have the ability to appoint the chair and with consent of the council, I want to make sure that the individuals understand, first and foremost, that you got to have a transparent process. It's got to be open, because I want it to be accountable to the citizens and residents of the District of Columbia. When you started sitting up here talking about you have a menu of services, how do we even know what the menu is or what the menu of items that are there if we have not had a chance to be able to review what those items are? But what I would want to make sure is that in investments that what I would want to put forward would have to be primarily in 3 areas. It would have to always be about jobs. We know that with the sequestration that just recently happened, with the budget shutdown, we know we lost a lot of jobs. In the last jobs report, it said that we lost jobs, but the ones that we gained were still in the government sector. We cannot be a Washington, D.C. that is continuing to focus on jobs in the government. And so I want to make sure that we continue to make investments in areas around training and skill development and workforce development. Secondly, yes, we are going to continuously talk about affordable housing. 3 years ago, in a big session, you said housing, affordable housing, was the #1 priority in the District of Columbia because we have a chronic problem. We have to not just put money right now in the trust fund, we have to make it a 5-year commitment. And I would make only a 4-year commitment as your next mayor. And I would do that.
Mr. Sherrod?
As a small business owner, I believe that our business franchise tax is one of the highest in the region. And I would recommend to make it more in parity with Maryland and Virginia. Probably bring it down to 8.25 to attract small local businesses so that they can continue to grow and thrive and produce more jobs. The other thing is our income taxes. We have a single bracket between 40,000 and 350,000. I think that needs to be changed. I think we can increase the loan bracket to about 60,000 or 80,000, depending on whether you're single, whether you're married. And I would say that we need to increase it to that level and then have another bracket up to 350,000. And I would also make sure that I maintain the tax at the 350,000 when it comes to be sunset in 2016. So I want to be able to maintain that tax for forever. So that's the beginning. The other thing that I'd like to be able to see is to be able to have an earned income tax credit for childless families. For a person who does not have a child, they should be able to also get that deduction. The other thing I think that's really important with our tax is our sales tax. Right now it's 5.75. I'd like to increase that to 6, and I think that will also generate a lot of revenues for us. The other thing is I think we have to also consider our rainy day fund, which is now growing immensely, and now we at $1.5 billion and about to go maybe to $2 billion. That's a lot to be able to hold on to. That's over almost 20% of our budget. And when we say rainy day fund, for some people it's really raining and they're drowning. And I think it's time for us to be able to reinvest in our communities so we can have them be stronger. Thank you.